Okay, welcome everyone. Hope you had a nice weekend. Well, I don't know quite which day this is uploaded, but if it's a Monday, I hope you had a nice weekend. In New York here, it's been like super rainy weekend, so it was kind of shitty for doing things, but actually a nice weekend for art and thinking about art. Um, One of the things I've been thinking about recently is like this idea of going to museums and looking at other artwork and how you kind of absorb other artwork as an artist. And one of the things I was thinking would be cool is if we actually went to, if I went to a museum, maybe with this phone or with the camera, and we could like look at some images together and talk about them. But just like briefly, just talking about like my approach to museums. So one of my favorite things to do is actually take my sketchbook with me into a museum with like a pencil and eraser and everything. Normally I bring like a little sketchbook, actually something that's like, more or less the same size of what I'm working in now, something that's like about this size. And generally I'll like look around at the paintings that I like, and then I'll try and do an exercise just like the types of exercises that we're doing here, but in the museum. So for example, I'll like find a portrait that I really like and then sit there and try and do a little bit of a master copy and try and think consciously about one of these things, not just about copying, as faithfully as I can the portrait, but instead trying to extract some element out of it. So for example, maybe I'm focused on composition, or I'm, going through and actually I recently went to a museum and I did a little compositional study, and I'll kind of put that up on the screen now. But so I'll like think about, okay, I want to try and extract the composition, and I'll do a sketch of this painting and think about the composition. And for me, this is like a really, really fun way to enjoy museums. And in fact, like a decent, like some of the, not, I was gonna say a decent percentage of the photos that I posted on my Instagram, for example, come from drawings I've done in museums. There's probably 5 or 10 actually that I've done while I'm in a museum. One of my favorite ones I actually did in a museum, and I'll kind of show that one as well. This image I did is a copy of a statue, and this was actually, some museums are super nice and will even let you bring in like an easel. And at that point in time, I'd actually brought in an easel and did a drawing based on the statue from life. I did that drawing, and I really, really like it. So this was just something I was kind of thinking about because it was a bit of a rainy day, and I guess that was kind of like a bit of like a ramble or a bit of a side discussion. But I want to come back to that idea a little bit more, thinking about museums and thinking about how they can be enjoyed, and maybe even seeing if there's like a way to kind of share this experience through museum. So that's what I was thinking about this weekend. I actually didn't draw very much, so like my daily drawing is mostly limited actually to like Monday to Friday. And that's kind of like to prevent a little bit of burnout, but I'll also draw for myself a little bit over the weekend, but probably won't be recording it very often. So like this weekend, I think I did like a little bit of sketching here and there, but nothing too substantial. So I think actually the best thing to do is kind of jump into this, and maybe we'll have something that another topic that comes out of whatever the drawing is today. And I think like the last time I drew, we were working on like line quality a little bit. And I think that was like kind of that was a nice exercise, and I might do something similar again today actually. And so let's see, I'm gonna spend a few minutes after this and trying to decide, and then we'll find out what I did, but it's either I'm gonna work on line quality again or gesture. So let's see, I guess I'm gonna jump right in and see what happens naturally. Okay, so that was actually a super awesome drawing session. I'm super stoked about that, especially after kind of like a rambling introduction to it and not really knowing what I was going to do. So I ended up finding a drawing by Steve Houston, who is like one of my favorite artists of all time. If you're not familiar with him, you should definitely check out some of his work. He is super awesome. And actually, I think he at least in part, trained Chris Legaspi. So I think there's like no coincidence that those are some of my favorite artists. And they're both amazing. And Steve Houston happens to be a master of line. Even more so than I realized. Like I knew it, but now after doing just this one drawing, I have like such a deeper understanding. And in fact, actually, if you're trying to improve your line drawing, I recommend just doing the same exact exercise I just did and copy Steve Houston's drawing here, this portrait, paying attention to line. It is such a powerful portrait, and the usage of line is like incredible. So like just a few things that I picked up on and that I will like definitely try and reinforce, like even in my next drawings, like try and pull this in to make sure that I don't lose this knowledge or lose this habit, is like the way that he uses line weight is really incredible. So if you look at this image, there's actually like very little shadow that is like in terms of there's no hard shadow lighting from either like the left side of the face or the right side of the face. But a lot of the like implication of the shadow is created by the weight of the lines. So things like, for example, if you look at the line weight along the chin, it's just amazing. So you get this idea that the shadow is forming along the bottom like right side. Well, I guess for the portrait it'd be the left side, but based on if we're looking at the same video, it'd be along this side of the portrait. And so it's like this, I don't know if I got that right, but anyway, it's not important. The point is, if you look at the side that has the strong shadow along the jaw, or like this very thick line, this is like really the implication of the shadow. And then you similarly, on the other side, have this super sharp, like thick line that's coming along the other side. And then amazingly, you have a lost edge. So these are not connected. So he left this open to imply maybe that there's no shadow there. But then if you look, there's actually some lines that kind of go through that space to suggest the shape of the face. So it's like truly incredible, the like mastery here of like what he's doing with these individual lines. And I've actually listened to some interviews with Steve Houston, so I have some knowledge into his process. And one of the things that he kind of uses is he calls it this like very like smoky effect, where if you're sometimes uncertain about a line, like let's say you're uncertain about the width of the neck or exactly where the chin should be. Sometimes you can get away with putting in 2 or 3 lines, or like a thick line and then a couple thin lines around it. And the viewer, when they look at this drawing, will actually fill in the drawing using the line that's most aesthetically pleasing to them. And that way you don't have to make the decision on which line it actually is. And I was kind of able to get that on like one side of the neck. And if you look, I mean, he does recommend that you use this sparingly. If you do this over the whole drawing, it's just like the whole drawing is a suggestion. Eventually you need to make some decisions and convey something. But in certain places you can just leave this kind of like suggested idea up to the viewer. And this drawing uses it, and I managed to kind of like see where he did and try and like copy it and capture it. And it's just like really incredible. Even the length of the chin. If you look, there's like an extra line that's below the dark line, which sometimes when you look at it, your eye will actually pick that as the bottom of the chin as opposed to the dark line. It kind of depends like how you look at it and what angle you look at the drawing. So this is like really interesting and really amazing and a really great exercise for line. I might even come back to it at some point. So if you want to do, so first of all, you can just straight up do more than one iteration of the same exercise. You've seen me in the series already draw the same image more than once, and so like there's still benefit to doing the exact same copying here, focusing on line again. But one thing you can do is actually flip the drawing, and so you have the symmetry of it, and then do that drawing again based on the flipped image. And even though it's the same, so you have similarly like strong line lessons, you will see them through a different lens just because the image is now, slightly different. So your eye will maybe pick up different things, or upright that way. So I don't know, I'll probably redo it at some point. As you can see, I'm like super excited by this exercise, and I think it's like, I actually didn't realize how beautiful a drawing it is, like in the sense of like I looked at it, wow, this is a beautiful drawing. But then this is one of the ones where when you really study it and really get into it, you realize like how much mastery is behind everything that's done here. I mean, even I'm not even touching the composition and the anatomy and the like way that the focal point of the eyes is used and the expression and kind of like the power of everything. I mean, there's so many different elements that would be worth studying. I'm just focusing now on the line, and it's such a masterpiece. So yeah, anyway, I think that was a lot of excited rambling, but you get the idea. Super happy with today's exercise, and also the drawing too. I think is kind of cool. It's nice to have this little Steve Houston copy in my sketchbook now. So I guess that's it for today, whatever day it was. I think day 11, and we will see each other again tomorrow.